I have never seen the escrow line move this fast. Homeowners across Florida are opening a mortgage statement that looks nothing like the one they signed. Property taxes climbing, an insurance letter with a new number circled in red, and association dues that went up again. The payment they were promised has quietly become a payment they do not recognize. And almost nobody selling houses in this state will say out loud what the raw numbers are actually showing. So let me say it plainly. The falling apart headline you keep seeing about Florida is the wrong story. It is not that Florida homes stopped selling. Single-family homes are still selling, and I will show you the proof in a moment. The real story is hiding one line down on the mortgage statement in the escrow breakdown almost no buyer reads before closing. For a growing number of Florida owners, the loan itself is no longer the expensive part of the house. The taxes, the insurance, and the association dues now cost more than the mortgage. That is the story, and the numbers do not lie. People do. Keep that one sentence in your head for the next several minutes, because everything I am about to show you comes back to it. The numbers do not lie. People do. The listing agent who tells you the market is fine. The seller who swears the price is firm. The neighbor who insists his house is worth what he paid. They can all shade the truth. A property tax bill and an insurance renewal cannot. Let me start with a single house, because one real Florida home will do more here than 100 statistics. Picture a 5-bedroom house built about 7 years ago in a subdivision outside Cape Coral. Beige stucco, barrel tile roof, a screened pool in the back. On paper, it looks like a bargain. The seller is offering to let a buyer take over the existing loan at a low fixed rate, the kind of rate that vanished years ago. The house is listed under $400,000, already below what the neighbors paid. It should have sold in a weekend. It did not. A buyer walked, and the reason that buyer walked is the whole point of this video. Hold that beige stucco house in your mind. I am going to come back to it, and when I do, it is going to explain the entire Florida market in one driveway. But first, the question everyone is actually asking. Is Florida's housing market falling apart in 2026? Because if you only read headlines, you would think the moving trucks are lined up down every street in the state. So let us go to the closing data, the real closings, not the noise. In June of 2026, single-family home sales across Florida were up about 9% compared to a year earlier. That was the 10th month in a row of year-over-year growth. 10 straight months of more homes closing, not fewer. The median single-family price reached $432,000, up nearly 5% on the year. Those are not the numbers of a market falling apart. A market coming apart looks like forced sellers dumping houses at any price. This looks like the opposite. Buyers are still signing, even with mortgage rates sitting around 6.5%. So if homes are still selling, why does every other video promise you a wipeout? Because they are staring at the wrong market. Florida is not one housing market right now. It is two, moving in opposite directions on the same street. On one side, single-family houses, with inventory sitting near 4.5 months of supply, which is a fairly balanced market. On the other side, condos and townhouses sitting near 8 months of supply, which tilts hard toward buyers. Walk into a coastal condo tower in Fort Lauderdale or Miami-Dade, and you will see units lingering for months, prices sliding, sellers cutting. Drive 20 minutes inland to a single-family neighborhood, and you will see homes going under contract in weeks. Same state, same month, two completely different realities. Redfin's market data shows the same divide, with condo listings across South Florida sitting far longer on the market and taking repeated price cuts, while inland single-family homes still move. Zillow's home value figures tell the identical story from the other direction, with the typical single-family value across most of inland Florida holding steady, while the older coastal condo segment slides. Anyone selling you one simple wipeout story is flattening two markets into one, and the flattening is where the LIE lives. Now here is the part I want you to sit with, because this is where the fresh data beats the headlines. The numbers most channels quote are old. When you see a national report on Florida housing, you are usually looking at data that is 6 weeks stale by the time it reaches you. Contracts in Florida take 30 to 90 days just to move from signing to closing, so a closed sale you read about today reflects a decision a buyer made back in spring. The public conversation is always looking in the rearview mirror. The people watching the live listing feed, the brokers refreshing the multiple listing service every morning are seeing the turn weeks before the headlines catch up. And what that live feed shows is the split I just described getting sharper. Fresh single-family listings still finding buyers, fresh condo listings piling up, taking price cut after price cut. By the time the lagging public number confirms it, the owners living it have already felt it in their own neighborhood for a month and a half. You can watch it happen on any Florida listing site right now. Pull up a coastal condo tower in Sarasota or Naples and count the units that have been sitting since spring, each one wearing a little price cut tag on the Zillow listing. Then pull up a single-family neighborhood in Ocala or Lakeland and watch how fast the new listings flip to pending. The public headline that lands 6 weeks from now will finally say what those two screens already show today. So the big question has a real answer, and here it is. Florida single-family housing is cooling and rebalancing, not falling apart. The condo market is genuinely soft and getting softer, but neither of those is the thing that is quietly hurting Florida homeowners the most. The thing that is actually squeezing people is not on the listing at all. And that brings me back to the escrow statement and to the single most important number in this entire video. This is the reveal, so let me build it slowly with real dollars. Take a median-priced Florida home around $425,000, bought with a normal down payment on a 30-year loan at today's rates. The principal and interest, the actual mortgage, runs roughly $2,300 a month. That is the number people budget for. That is the number on the calculator. Now watch what stacks on top of it. Property taxes on a median Florida home run somewhere between about $2,700 and $4,000 a year, which is a few $100s a month. Homeowners insurance statewide now commonly runs from around $2,400 to well over $6,000 a year. And on the coast, it climbs far higher than that. And then the association dues. On a single-family home in a planned community, often $50 to $250 a month. On a condo, frequently $400 to $700 a month before any special assessment letter arrives. Now add those three together and set them next to the mortgage. On plenty of ordinary Florida homes, the taxes plus the insurance plus the dues have quietly grown into a number that rivals the loan payment. And on a condo or on a home someone bought years ago with a low, locked-in mortgage, the escrow and the dues now clearly cost more than the mortgage itself. Read that again because it is the sentence the whole industry avoids. For a large and growing share of Florida owners, the house is not the expensive part anymore. The cost of keeping the house is. You did not get a rate you could not afford. You got a bill after the rate that nobody put on the listing. Picture a retired couple in a 20-year-old condo tower on the Gulf Coast. Their mortgage is small, maybe $1,500 a month, because they bought years ago and paid much of it down. But their monthly association dues just crossed $600, their insurance keeps climbing, and a special assessment letter for the building's new concrete inspection just arrived taped to the mailbox. Their mortgage is the smallest check they write on that home. Everything wrapped around the mortgage is the big one. That is not a rare story on the Florida coast anymore. In the older condo towers, it is becoming the normal one. That is why a homeowner in Central Florida can be current on the mortgage, never late a single month, and still feel like the walls are closing in, the loan is fixed. The escrow is not. Every November the property tax bill lands. Every renewal the insurance letter lands. Every year the association raises the dues to cover its own rising insurance. The mortgage is the one line on the statement that promised to stay still, and it is now the smallest villain in the room. Look at the reasons listings actually come off the market across Florida, and the same word hides behind almost all of them. A listing expires, and the real reason is the carry priced it out of reach. A listing is withdrawn, and the real reason is the carry. A price is cut and cut again, chasing a buyer who already did the carry math and kept scrolling. The sticker price is the argument everyone has out loud. The carrying cost is the argument that actually decides it, and no headline about home prices up or down tells you a thing about that, because it is not a price problem. It is a carrying cost problem, and it follows you whether prices rise or fall. Now let me show you how far that carrying cost has actually moved, because the scale of it is hard to believe until you compare it to the past. Go back to the housing bust years, and a Florida household earning a modest middle-class income could comfortably carry the typical home. The mortgage was the whole cost, and the mortgage was manageable. Today, to carry that same typical home, once you load in the taxes, the insurance, and the dues, a household needs to earn dramatically more. Not because the house got bigger, but because the bill wrapped around the house did. The sticker price is only the down payment on the real cost. That gap between the income the mortgage requires and the income the whole house requires is the quiet reason so many Florida families feel squeezed on paper while their home value is still technically fine. It is not the price crushing them, it is the carry. And you feel it most at the closing table, where a buyer who qualified easily for the loan suddenly stares at an escrow estimate that adds hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month on top of the payment they planned for. The mortgage approval was the easy gate to walk through. The full monthly carry is the wall behind it. And more Florida buyers are hitting that wall after they have already fallen in love with the beige stucco house and the screened pool. And here is the honest counterpoint I owe you, because you are going to hear it in the comments no matter what. Someone is going to say this is not just a Florida problem, this is happening all over the country. And that is partly true. Insurance and taxes are rising in a lot of places, but Florida is the sharp end of it, and the reasons are specific to this state. Florida sits in the hurricane bullseye, so insurance here is among the highest in the entire nation. Florida has no state income tax, so local government leans harder on property taxes and fees. And Florida built an enormous share of its housing inside associations and community districts, so the dues layer is heavier here than almost anywhere. So yes, the carrying cost squeeze exists nationally. It just lands harder on a retiree in Florida than almost anywhere else in America, and pretending otherwise would be its own kind of lie. So now let me come back to that beige stucco house outside Cape Coral, the 5-bedroom with the low assumable loan that should have sold in a weekend and did not. Here is why the buyer walked. It was never really about the price. The buyer ran the full number, the whole carry, and the taxes and the insurance and the dues on that specific house turned an affordable-looking mortgage into a monthly payment that no longer made sense. The low rate was real. The carry killed it. And the seller could not simply drop the price to fix it because the seller had refinanced during the boom, pulled equity out, and now owed nearly what the house was worth. The seller had no room to cut. The buyer had no reason to stay. And that standoff, multiplied across the state, is the real Florida market in 2026. Not a dramatic wipeout. A quiet gridlock where the cost of owning has outrun what the next buyer can carry, and the sellers who cashed out during the good years have nothing left to give. That standoff also explains the strange thing you keep hearing about people leaving. The flow of new residents into Florida has slowed dramatically. Net domestic migration into the state fell to about 22,000 people in 2025, down from more than 300,000 just 3 years earlier. Miami-Dade County alone lost roughly 73,000 domestic residents, more people moving out to elsewhere in the country than moving in. The sun did not stop shining, the math stopped working. The people who used to arrive and bid up every listing looked at the full carrying cost, the insurance especially, and quietly chose somewhere else. Fewer new buyers arriving is exactly what turns a hot market into a standoff. You can see the reversal on the highways and in the moving truck lots, where trucks that once rolled south full now roll north loaded with the same furniture that arrived 4 years ago. The state did not become less beautiful. The beach is still there, the sun is still there. What changed is the annual bill to stand on that beach as an owner, and enough people ran that bill and decided the view was not worth the carry. Now, there is real relief on the way, and I'm not going to hide it from you, because a channel that only sells fear is just another version of the people who lie. On insurance, the state's insurer of last resort, Citizens, approved an average rate decrease of nearly 9% for 2026, and new companies have been entering the market. But here is the honest catch, and it matters. A rate decrease is not the same as a lower bill. Typical Florida premiums still run from around $4,000 to $6,000 a year even after these cuts, because a smaller percentage increase or a small decrease on an already enormous number is still an enormous number. Do not confuse the direction changing with the pain ending. On taxes, there is a ballot measure this November, Amendment 3, that would raise the homestead exemption for many owners starting in 2027, which would genuinely trim the tax line for a primary residence. But notice what neither of those touches. Neither one lowers your association dues, and neither one rebuilds the roof insurance on an aging condo. The relief is real and it is partial, and you should plan around the part it does not reach. So let me give you the dividing line that tells you exactly where you personally stand, because this splits every Florida owner into two groups. If you bought your home before about 2018, you are almost certainly sitting on real equity. The boom lifted your value far above what you paid, so even in a softer market, you have room. You could cut your price to sell and still walk away with money, or you can simply sit tight and ride out the carry, because time is on your side. But if you bought from about 2019 onward, especially near the peak, the math is tighter. You paid a high price, your equity cushion is thin, and after the costs of selling, you may barely break even. For that group, it does not matter how good your interest rate is if the house will not sell for meaningfully more than you owe. One of those two groups can move freely. The other is, for now, stuck holding the carry until the market or the calendar sets them loose. Figure out which one you are in before you make a single decision, because the right move is completely different for each. Now let me name who actually caused this, honestly, without turning it into a cartoon. Part of it is builders who kept putting up new subdivisions and condo towers even as the wave of new residents was cutting in half. So the supply arrived exactly as the demand left, and you can see it today in the empty inventory on the condo side. Part of it is investors who bought up ordinary homes during the boom and bid ordinary families out of neighborhoods that used to be affordable, which is why a real slice of this audience is not scared of a correction at all, but quietly rooting for it. Part of it is sellers who treated their home like a cash machine during the good years, refinanced the equity out, and now have nothing left to negotiate with. And part of it, the part that stings, is an industry that watches the escrow numbers climb and still tells you everything is fine. Because everything is fine for the person collecting the commission. None of them is a comic book villain, but all of them had a hand in the standoff, and the honest ones will admit it. Drive through the newest subdivisions outside Tampa and Cape Coral, and you will see the evidence still standing. Whole streets of brand new houses and half-occupied condo buildings that went up on a bet that the migration wave would never break. The wave broke. The buildings did not stop. That timing, new supply landing exactly as new demand left, is the single clearest fingerprint on this entire market, and it is sitting right there in the empty driveways. So here is the verdict, because you did not come this far for me to shrug. If you are a condo owner in an older coastal building facing rising dues and a possible special assessment, and you have been thinking about getting out, the data says do not wait for a better market, because the condo side is the soft side and time is working against you there. Sell into what is still a functioning market rather than a frozen one. If you own a single-family home you can actually afford to carry, and you bought before the peak, sit still. Do not panic sell into fear. Your equity is real, your market segment is holding, and the carrying cost, while heavy, is survivable if you plan for it. And if you are a buyer, this is the first time in years you have leverage, and it lives on the condo side and in the overpriced listings that have sat too long. Make the seller prove the carry works before you fall in love with the rate. Run the full number, taxes and insurance and dues included, before you ever sign. Ask the listing agent for the actual tax bill, the actual insurance quote on that specific address, and the actual association budget with any assessment history attached. If the agent gets vague when you ask for those three documents, that vagueness is your answer. A seller who is proud of the carry hands you the paperwork. A seller who is hiding the carry hands you a smile. The mortgage is the easy part, the carry is the test. If this breakdown helped you see past the headline, take 1 second and tap the like button, because it genuinely pushes this in front of other Florida owners before they sign on a home whose carry they never calculated. And if you want the full picture before you make a move, I keep everything in one place. A single breakdown of 40 Florida towns, 20 that are genuinely worth buying into right now, and 20 worth staying well away from, each one with the specific reason attached, including the carrying cost risk we just walked through. The link is waiting in the description if you want to see which side of that line your town falls on before you ever make an offer. Now, I want to hear from you, because the comments on these are always the sharpest part. Pull up your own mortgage statement and look at the escrow line. and tell me the truth. Are your taxes, your insurance, and your association dues now bigger than your actual mortgage payment? Drop your county and your numbers below, because someone scrolling right now is about to buy in your exact market and needs to hear a real number from a real owner, not a promise from a listing. And subscribe, because these figures move every single month, and I would rather you hear the next turn from me than find out from a renewal letter taped to your own door. Because here is the last thing, and it is the whole point. Florida is not falling apart. Florida is repricing the true cost of staying and doing it quietly, one escrow statement at a time, while the people who profit from the sale keep telling you the sticker price is the story. It never was. The bill that arrives after the mortgage is the story. Run your own numbers, trust the ones you can hold in your hand, and remember the only rule that has survived this entire market. The numbers do not lie, people do.